Okay, let's talk about data classifications. So data can be categorized into two forms. One is called qualitative data, and the other one is called quantitative data. So I will discuss quantitative data first because this is very self-explanatory. If you can write down the data in the form of numericals, 1, 2, 3, and so on, you can write down the data in the form of numbers. And then you can apply certain mathematical operations on these numbers. For example, you can add them, you can divide them. Then this data is called quantitative data. But qualitative data is more likely to express attributes, labels, and this is mostly non-numeric. Okay, for example, if you try to list down the cities of Pakistan, Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi, that data, although provides you some information where a particular person belongs from, but that is not a quantitative data. That is a qualitative information. Okay, so qualitative and quantitative are different from each other. Quantitative can be expressed in the form of digits, and that then mathematical operations can be applied on it. But in qualitative data, that cannot be done. We can only categorize categorize qualitative data. We can only put that into categories. Right. So here we have example where we have qualitative data in the form of names of the students, whereas we have quantitative data in the form of GPA, grade point average of the students. So you can see we can add these with each other, we can divide with each other. For example, if we want to add them up, we can get a total, and that total would be meaningful. We add them up and then we divide on 5 because there are 5 different values. We get an average of this. But what if we add these names and divide on 5? We don't get a meaningful information. So here, these are qualitative data, and these are quantitative data. Now, based upon this distinction of qualitative and quantitative, there are further categories, and we usually call them levels of measurement. Okay, because we measure the data through these categories, these classifications in statistics. And two of them, nominal and ordinal, two of them are called categorical data, and two of them are called quantitative data. Okay. There is one more distinction which I want to discuss here, which is the difference between discrete and continuous data. So discrete data is which can be expressed in the form of whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, if I talk about the number of students listening to this lecture, and that can be expressed in whole numbers only. There cannot be 6.5 students or 9.8 students. No, there are going to be 6 or 7 students. There are going to be 8 or 9 students, right? And continuous data is which does not have any gaps between it. For example, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then again you can write the information between these 2 points as 1.11, 1.12, and so on. So continuous data is that can be expressed in the form of decimals, and that also has no gap between it. Okay, so it's important to understand the difference between discrete and continuous data. And then we measure the data in 4 different categories. 1 is nominal, 2 is ordinal, 3 is interval, and 4 is ratio. And nominal and ordinal are classified as categorical data, and interval and ratio are classified as quantitative data. Right, first of all, nominal level of measurement. What is the nominal level of measurement? And this is only applicable to qualitative information, qualitative data. All right. So nominal calculated using names, labels, or qualities. Names. You have a name, and your siblings would have names. People around you have names. So that name defines a person. So that is a nominal characteristic that you speak when you speak of somebody. Label. For example, this is a chalk, this is a board, this is a mobile phone. All these are labels. Qualities. Color of eye. For example, blue eye, green eye, brown eye, hazel color. These are colors that can be categorized. So they are nominal level of measurement. Again, remember, we cannot apply any mathematical operation on nominal data, and neither we can write down the nominal data and in any particular order. Let me give you an example. For example, Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. So I can change the order of these three cities, and that order won't change the data that I have in front of you. Okay, I can change the order, which means I can write Lahore at first number, or I can write the Karachi at first number. That does not change anything in the data. That is not the case in ordinal data. In ordinal data, we have to write the data in a particular order. Okay, there is a particular order in the data. Data is always arranged in order. That can be ascending order, that can be descending order, or you know, arrangement that is based upon a particular characteristic. Let me give you some examples. For example, if 4 years graduation degree is there, you have first year students called freshmen, second year students called sophomore, third year students called junior, and the fourth year students called senior. So you can arrange them in first year, second year, and third year, fourth, and that means something. You cannot put third year students first and then you say the first year, because you know that first year students are the most junior students. Then numbers on the back of each player's shirt. You have seen players in sports that they have numbers at the back of their shirts, and mostly they mean something. For example, they are whole numbers, uh, 1, 2, 3, and so on, goes to up to 99 maybe. Right, so you can arrange those numbers in a particular order. Then top 50 songs played on radio. When you say top 50, that means every song in that list of 50 songs will have a particular number, and that will be in an order. So that is an ordinal data. Again, this is a categorical data. You cannot apply any mathematical operations. First year, second year students cannot be added together and divided with something. No, you cannot do that. That can only be done with numerical data or quantitative data. And the first form of measurement, or the level of measurement in quantitative data, is interval data. Interval data is arranged in order. It also has categories. It is also arranged in orders. The differences between data entries can be calculated, and the differences can be calculated. For example, temperature. Let me give you an example. You have the scale of temperature where 0 Celsius means something. 0 Celsius means temperature, but this is less than 1 Celsius, and that is less than 2 Celsius. And then you have -1 Celsius and -2 Celsius. So each and every value on this interval means something. And the distance between 0 and 1 is equal to distance between 1 and 2. So that's why we have equal intervals in this data. This is called interval scale of measurement. Now the next one is ratio scale. And the only difference between interval and ratio is that in ratio you have a true zero. Again, you have a scale, but that scale starts from 0. There is no negative value here. Okay, because age cannot be negative, grade points cannot be negative, weights cannot be negative. Age will start from 0. Then you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and so on. And grade point again, it starts from 0, 1, and so on, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then you can have other decimal points in between these continuous data. So we have quantitative and continuous data in two scales, level of measurement. Number one is interval, number two is ratio. And the only difference is ratio has an absolute zero, which means the characteristic or property starts from 0. It does not have any negative values. But here in interval, you see we have negative values. So this 0 is called arbitrary 0. Arbitrary 0. All right. So here is the complete picture of all these four levels of measurements. We have nominal, we have ordinal, interval, and ratio. And you can see there are categories in each one of them. And you can see a trend. As you go further, you see that the previous characteristics get added up into the next category. You can see in ratio, you have all the characteristics of all other levels of measurement. In nominal, you only have categories. In ordinal, you have categories and you also have order. In interval, you can have categories, you can have an order, you can subtract or add values, you can apply mathematical operations on them, but you don't have a true 0. Okay. In ratio, you have categories, you can place them in an order, you can apply mathematical operations, and there is always an absolute 0. All right. So this is the information about data and its classification. Next, we're going to study about experimental design.